right, and keep admitting people in as they file in. We had a lot of people sign up for this today, so we're excited, and I'm sure people are just going to keep filing in. Gabriella, could you keep an eye on letting participants in as I go ahead and begin?
Hello, everyone.
All right, so we're going to go ahead. We're going to get started. Welcome to this very special webinar. It's being hosted by the International Language Coaching Association, and today we are featuring, as a part of our Expert 2020 series, Judy Thompson, and she will be discussing this concept of identifying as a language coach and going through her journey, the process that she was on in her journey to that. I do want to say, just from the very beginning, we have a summer intensive program coming up this summer that is very relevant potentially for some of you in here today that haven't had any formal language coach training, that are identifying as language coaches, that are here in this space today because you really feel like it's something that resonates with you. It's a 3-day training event. You can find the details on our website, internationallanguagecoaching.com. It's in early, and if you could please mute yourself. Let me, hold on. Let me do that. Sorry, one second, guys. Okay, sorry, yeah, I just muted everybody for a second there. Yeah, please check it out. It's, you know, it's our foundation course, and elements of our foundation course and elements of our expansion course really condensed into an intensive training period. It's in early July. The trainings, it's over 3 kind of full days of training. All of the details are there on our website. Please go to it, check it out, and email us if you have any questions about it, okay? With that, I'm going to turn over, I'm gonna stop sharing now, and I'm gonna turn things over to Judy to go ahead and share and get started.
Okay, there, I just come unmute. Well, I'm pretty thrilled to be here. And hope, I'm just gonna take this toolbar has to go before I can start. There it is. There we go. Does that look good? Does that look right?
Yes, yes.
Yep, you're good.
Okay, yes. This is something new that I tried. Look at that slide. Is it moving?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
That's new for me. I'm not technology, I'm challenged, so that was fun. I try to do new things every time. So I'm going to talk to you today about my journey in hopes that I can shave years, maybe even decades off of your journey. And it's going to start with a backstory and then the turning points. And I believe some of you will relate to these turning points and have turning points of your own. And then finding my people at the end was the end of the journey. In the backstory, I'll tell you quickly, I was old when I started. So I was 39, I was a single mom, I ran a farm, I had 4 kids. And when my last child got on the kindergarten bus, I realized I could do a job inside. And I went to an aptitude, and they said, you should be an ESL teacher. There are a lot of soft skills from horse training that transferred. And I said, great, what is that? There you go. So they told me what it was, and Humber College was a renowned college not far from me. And there were 500 applications for 24 spots, 24 seats, and 350 were thrown away because they didn't have a degree. I had a degree, I got an interview, and they picked me. And I was in that class. I still consider it one of the luckiest moments of my life. So in the backstory, we bring elements of our whole life, I believe, to teaching every day. And you don't even know at the beginning of the day where the end is going to go, where the students are going to take you. So in Seoul, Korea, or South Korea, I was teaching graduate students, and these people are learning machines, and they knew more about English than I did, but they didn't speak. And I found they needed to do English. So we did tea parties, poker games, movies, ballroom dancing, skipping songs, baseball. And I never in a million years would have guessed I would use skipping to teach people English, but they had to be in English. They had to do it and use what they had. So that was a surprise. My dad had his own bathroom. It didn't seem weird at the time when I was a little girl. We had a big house, or 5 kids. He had his own bathroom. It wasn't locked. It was like walking into a shaving kit, really. I didn't go in there. Nobody really went in there because none of my stuff was in there. It was his stuff. And this is going to become important later on. And if I don't get back to my dad has his own bathroom, remind me. So training horses and the soft skills, I learned about patterns. Here's a good one. Let's see. So all my kids were involved. We didn't hit horses. If you're a good trainer, you don't have to. But I had a 10-year-old daughter who was very interested in horses. And a horse stepped on her toe. And she said to me, I want to hit him. And I said, oh, how old is he? She said, well, he's 2. And I said, when he's 4, if he does that when he's 4, you can hit him when he's 4. And she said, oh, all right. She was fine with that. And then she said, Mom, how do I know? How do I know when? So all this intuitive stuff and a lifetime of skills and that I'd acquired, I had to share with a 10-year-old in a way that she could understand, in a way that would last her for the rest of her life. And I thought about it for a minute, and I realized if 4 conditions are met, any horse will do anything. So they're herd animals, so you have to be higher than them in the pecking order, and that's easy. But once you're higher than on the pecking order, if they understand what you want, if it's within their capability to do it, they aren't afraid and they aren't in pain, they'll just do it. And horses will do anything. And she's a horse trainer to this day. And that's the power of patterns. Tell me something that is always true. So this is all in my backstory. And it came when I had to share it with a child. It had to be a simple and all-inclusive. Always has to be true. It never came up for me again for years and years and years, but I was glad that it did. So that's my backstory done. And turning points, my 3 big turning points, and one of them happened my very first day of school. And it was the tools I needed to make the difference that I wanted to make, I didn't get. So there wasn't, I was in the wrong place and there are others like me. I can't express to you how excited and happy. I was probably the happiest ESL teacher that was ever born. So when I finished my training and I volunteered at a school to get some experience, I had my name in. The plum job was the Board of Education, and I had my name in. And one day in May, I had my boots on, my coat on, everything. I was ready to go to the barn, and the phone rang. This was in the days when the phone rang, you had to get it or let the answering machine get it, remember? So I made a decision in that moment, oh, should I get it? I walked across the kitchen floor with my boots. I answered the phone, and it was the Board of Education saying, somebody quit, can you start tonight? I was obviously glad that I answered the phone. I subsequently learned, my name was Lister at the time, that they had worked through the entire alphabet. And when they got to me, I was the first applicant that had answered the phone. So it was ordained, this was in the stars, that I have this job. And I remember holding the doorknob and turning the doorknob the very first day of class. And it was like when you're pregnant, and then there's a moment, and then you're a mom. You're engaged, and there's a moment, and you're married, and your life has changed forever. And I knew when I turned that knob, I would be a different person and have a different identity. And I still remember that class. Nurim was a very old East Indian woman, and she never looked at me. She sat like that. And I subsequently learned that a bomb had gone off beside her. It had killed her husband, and she was deaf. And this year, she was listening to me. I had sucked deep in my class. She was just beautiful. And I thought, is it my job? This is still my first day, guys. Is it my job to tell her she can't keep that name in this country? And it was my job. And we did a unit on nicknames, and my name is in fact a nickname. So it's okay in this culture to pick a nickname. And she went with Suki, I think, which was better than Suck Deep. You can't do that. She was counting on me. It went on and on like that. So I'm starting at the beginning with the beginning, and I put on the board, I am, you are, he, the verb to be. And I'm trying to say it exactly as I'm putting it on, so I can be clear, so they can really get it. You can get my enthusiasm here. And I couldn't do it. So I'm saying, I am. I thought, shoot, I've never said that my whole life. You are. Never said it, never heard it in my life. I'm feeling a little panicky right now. He is. I couldn't do it. I said, okay, we're going to talk about vegetables, and we learned about food. There was something wrong with the way I was presenting the verb to be and the way I actually used the verb to be, and it didn't mix. And I couldn't process there was anything wrong or missing in my training. My training was a highlight of my life. I actually could not process that there was something wrong there. So I pretty much knew it was me. It was 4 years before I figured out what was going wrong in that first day. Because I'm doing this, I'm saying that, but I'm saying that I'm saying something else, which I wasn't. So that was confronting. Tell you the truth, that was even the beginning of a real turning point. So the structure in ESL in Canada is fantastic. So we have Canadian language benchmarks, and they're national. So benchmark 1 in Vancouver is exactly the same expectations and skills as benchmark 1 in Halifax on the other coast. Terrific. Benchmark 1, they can print words and their name and colors and numbers and things like that. Benchmark 2, they can do a sentence, even the odd adjective, simple sentence. Benchmark 3, they can write a paragraph, and you can do more than survival topics. So you can talk about the environment or something with benchmark 3. But you can see that from the diagram, 3/4 of the students in Canada are beginners, benchmark 1 to 3, or pre-benchmark absolute literacy students. And in my school, when the new teachers started with the literacy class, and the longer you were there. So I was at benchmark 3 before long, as teachers fell away. Okay, get a Kleenex, you guys. This is going to make you cry. It's probably going to make me cry. It makes me cry every time. Manuel was a doctor from Paraguay, and I was teaching benchmark 3 at that time, and he was a super student. He was incredibly bright. He had tremendous people skills. He was more like a co-teacher, and everything you taught him, he got it. So he moved through out of benchmark 3 quite quickly, but he was one that we would talk about in the staff room. We'd say, you know, who's got Manuel? And they'd say, me. And, you know, tremendous. And then he was out of our school. He went through all the things. And about 2 years later, our school was the second story of a giant community center. And there was a big theater and a big library on the main floor, and the second floor was classrooms. So in the lobby, going to school, I ran into Manuel. I'd encouraged him to volunteer at a hospital to get the lingo that he needed to know to get into that world. And we were so excited to each other. How are, oh, teacher, you know. And I said, what are you doing? You know. And he told me what he was doing, and he was cleaning toilets. He was an office cleaner by night. And the more he talked, it wasn't just what he was saying, it was how he was saying it. And he spoke exactly the same way as he did the very first day of class. I'd let him down. I looked into this, and this brings me to the chart. So this was a study, language instruction for newcomers to Canada. It's a great organization. Mostly students got better at reading and writing, because that's mostly what we teach. We don't teach speaking at all. Teachers avoid it. This chart shows there was a control group of students at different levels and their skills were measured. And then there were the linked students by benchmark. After 1,000 hours of class, their writing went up, their reading went up, they were immersed in a Canadian culture, an English speaking culture, their listening went up. Their speaking went up half a grade level in 1,000 hours, which was no different. It was statistically no different from the students who weren't in class at all. So I learned that was a turning point for me. I learned a couple of things from the Manuel story. I learned Manuel would never be a doctor in Canada because I didn't teach him to speak English. I thought he would get it somewhere else, I think, but he didn't. I knew this would never happen again in my classroom. If a student was in my class for one day, their relationship to English and speaking English would be transformed for the rest of their life, no exceptions. And the tools that I needed to make a difference for my students were not in my training. That was a revelation and a turning point and a heartbreaker. And a lot of teachers can't get past that moment, and I don't really blame them. So I had to forge a new path, and I took all kinds of courses and learned everything that I could. And Lydia Aiello, she wrote Pronunciation Pals and Sentence Pals. And I team taught with her, amazing. Catherine Brillinger, unbelievable teacher, and she runs the English department at Conestoga College. I took a teaching pronunciation course from her. So I was really immersed. And pronunciation is the wrong word. They want to speak English. And speaking is a tricky word because nobody knows if you mean elocution, public speaking, or speaking as a second language. So I get why we've hung on to pronunciation, but pronunciation isn't it. And everything my gurus, these were my gurus, everything that they taught me was true, but it wasn't all equally important. And that was the difference that I could make. And then I have my moment of brilliance. And go ahead, put it in the chat. Have you really concentrated, focused on something, and then had an epiphany, had a moment where I know what the answer is. I know what to do. And from that moment, you can never go backwards. And my epiphany about this, I was about 20 feet. I could stand in the spot today where this bolt of lightning struck me. I was about 20 feet from my classroom door, and I thought, long E's in green. And then I thought, short E's in red, and blue, long U is in blue, short A is in black. I got to my door, I opened the door. True story, I gave my students something to read and told them to answer the questions. And I asked them not to bother me. Can you guys not bother me? I'm having a thought. And out came the vowel chart. So there's 16 in the ordinary colors. Some of them are not ordinary. Olive is dirty green, mustard is dirty yellow, wood is, you know, the grain of the wood on their desk, charcoal is dark gray. But other than that, colors they have to learn. Those color names feature a vowel sound in English. And as we know, the vowel sound dictates the stressed syllable, it dictates the meaning. And let me back up for a sec here. Oh, the you are here, it's blocked, sorry, by my own picture. The you are here is students at my school did get pronunciation. Lydia taught it, and eventually I taught it with her. But you had to be benchmark 6 before you could take a speaking course at one of the biggest schools in Canada. So everybody below benchmark 6, all of them, everything was fossilized. They had no access to speaking. And the reason they didn't teach pronunciation was because IPA was too difficult. That's a big wrong. There's something big wrong there. If the tool is so awkward, you can't use it, get another tool. So using the keyboard syllables, vowels are long because there's two sounds in them. A has a Y in it. E has a Y in it. O has a W in it. So the students, whether they were absolute babies, they could figure out eight, E-I-G-H-T, and they, and name, and place, and face, rain, great, were all the same vowel sounds, and they could put them in the gray category. That's a gray word. They could keep it somewhere, and when they read it, they could pronounce it with confidence. Are you excited yet? And look, the Y's and the W's are in there for I am. I is white. I am. And there's the Y right there. He is. And there it is. There's the Y. He is. Are you as excited as I am? This is exciting stuff. So the color names provide the link from written to spoken that was never there before. English spelling is completely random. Keyboard symbols can be used to make more sense, to be a logical representation. Word sense, sentence stress, linking, even expressions. Blue moon and a red letter day are in there. There it is in black and white, are all embodied in that one page. And students of every level, teachers can learn this in 20 minutes and apply it to any. I'm pumped. So I took it to my supervisor. I said, look what we have. You know, I can teach it to, show it to the teachers in a PD day. We can all be on the same page, and we'll have pronunciation, speaking English literally at every level, you know. And she's, the body language is there. She's just like, I thought, wow, that's not the result I was looking for. This is another moment, you guys, where you've had a great idea and gone to share it and hit a wall, complete, full stop, not interested. And she said to me, our classrooms are full and they're clean. That's all I care about. I'm in the wrong place. In those days, outside of Toronto, Canada gets 250,000 immigrants a year. 1/3 of them were settling in the Greater Toronto area. 80,000 new students every year were arriving at our doorstep. You could teach anything and they'll show up. You know, how is this your benchmark for success? So the next one, so I had my benchmark 3 class, and we were doing my stuff, and they were on fire. I was taking them shopping and to the zoo, and they were interacting with English speakers in ordinary situations. And then it's the end of the term, and I can still hear click, 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 the sound of her high heels coming down the hall, straight for my door. She comes into my class, in front of my class. She says, no one has registered for benchmark 4 because you're a bad teacher. And I said, you know, you're holding it together because your students are there and you're like their mom. So you're being all cool about it, you know. I said, how would you know if I was a bad teacher? And she said, well, your attendance for one thing. Let's look at my attendance. Perfect attendance, unheard of in a continuous intake school. Every single moment they were in that class, they were learning something that they needed for their life. They weren't going to miss. So she looked at me, she said, well, why didn't they register then? I said, I don't know. Turn around and ask them. They're right there. And she turned around and she said, did anybody register for benchmark 4? And my students are all looking at the ground like this, no. This was news to me. I had no idea they didn't register, that this was an issue. So she said, why didn't you register for benchmark 4? Can anybody guess? They all got jobs. My whole class went to work, entry-level jobs. And they said, I got a job, I'm working at Tim Hortons, I'm working, whatever. Again, you expect a little good job, Judy, at this moment. Not forthcoming. She turned around and she said to me, you are screwing up our school. That's what she said. You are screwing up our school. We can't fire you. We just want you to go. I mean, we had a strong union. I had 4 kids. I had a pension. I had benefits. I had a salary. I had a job that I loved. I loved my coworkers. But it was an easy decision. I couldn't stay. So at the end of the semester, I went, and I had a farm, so I was not going to starve. And my kids were big, so they helped a lot with the farm. We weren't going to starve to death. I was in the wrong place. This was a bad moment for me. Some of you, I'm sure, have had some bad moment. It gets better. I submitted my topical outline to Sheridan College. Sheridan College had a conversation class, a pronunciation class, they had ESL classes, but God bless them, the manager said, I'm going to send your topical outline around to the other teachers. If you're not teaching, if it doesn't interfere with anything that they're teaching, then you can teach it. We'll put it in the calendar. All the teachers said, no, we're not teaching that. We're not teaching that. And I thought, I know you're not teaching that because I made it up. But anyway, so I started teaching speaking Canadian English for Sheridan College. The pronunciation class disappeared. The conversation class disappeared. You know, nobody wanted to learn about English anymore. They wanted to speak English. So I put all my notes and my stuff together, my course really, and it became English is Stupid. We eventually had to change the title. It's now, this is a kind of an original thing, but English is Stupid worked in an English environment because they were confronted every day with the ridiculousness of English and the disconnect between what they were taught and how people spoke to them. So teachers, for example, you know, we teach good morning, how are you? I've never said that in my life. I've never heard it. When I encountered my colleagues in the office, we'd even say, yo, we'd say, what's up? How was your weekend? We never said, good morning, how are you? Like, ever. So this disconnect between real English and what we were teaching was always there. So my Sheridan College class, they were mostly employed, and most of their tuitions were paid by their employers. And there were accountants, engineers, nurses, secretaries, police officers, and their employers paid because there was something about their speaking that was holding them back in their career. Everything else in their career was amazing, and there was something holding them back. So this was my baby, and at the beginning of the term, I'd ask, what do you think the problem is? And I put the problems up on the board. And to my surprise, the family, the answers to that question was very small, less than 6. They had less than 6 reasons why they weren't speaking English now. And they were explaining to me in English how they couldn't speak English. So confidence, misinformation was one of the big problems. If I could wave a magic wand and fix one thing, what would you have me fix? And then the promise is, I will fix that. I'll fix your concerns about your accent in week 3. I'll fix your concerns about making grammar mistakes and looking foolish. I'll fix that in week 6. This was a 12 or 14 week course. And their promise to me, it was a contract, they must come to class. If you come to class, I will fix all of your issues, and I'll tell you when I fix them. And that's not teaching anymore. There's something different about that, about the conversation and the contract and the assessment and the promise, the accountability. So at the end of the term, we would revisit the list. We'd all copy the list. We'd revisit the list the week before the last day. So if I didn't make good on my promise, I had a week to make that good. But it was fine. They actually just laughed. They laughed their little heads off about it. But I'd ask them, and I don't know why I asked them, it was epiphany. What's your epiphany? What was the one thing that I said or that you learned that made a difference, that was a tipping point, your aha moment, where they went, ah, you know, and everything fell into place. Again, there were only a handful of answers. There were only a handful of moments of transformation. So my course is getting finer and finer and finer tuned, and I was more and more and more effective. So then in 2009, when English is Stupid came out, somebody said TED was a closed club till 2009. And in 2009, you could apply to TED and follow the rules and host a TEDx event. So somebody called and said, you know, we think you have an idea that could change the world. Do you want to do a TED Talk? And I said, sure, having no idea what a TED Talk was. Yeah, sure. I was doing lots of conferences and things like that. And then I subsequently learned what it was, and that was super cool. But when I went to the TED thing, the equipment didn't work. There were no rehearsals. They said, you have 18 minutes to share your idea. And if you go over it, we're throwing it in the garbage. We're not going to publish it. And now go ahead, you know, have fun. Go change the world. You have 15 minutes, go, like this. What I wanted, I didn't do. And I thought, what can I say in 15 minutes that will change the world forever? And what I wanted to say was native speakers are the problem. And in 2009, again, this was not something native speakers could even process, that they were in the global conversation. They were too idiomatic. They used too many words. They talked too fast. You know, you're the problem. They were starting to have international meetings without native English speakers. We're already that big of a problem. So that's what I wanted to say, but I couched it in there with two really critical things for ESL. And those were my 3 secrets that you need to know for spoken English. Oh yeah. And I volunteered at a professional speakers organization, and I was the host person for a woman. Her name was Susan Abbott. She was vice president of Toronto Dominion Bank. And she was doing a presentation on resources, which was amazing. And at some point, when I'm bringing her water and taking care of her, she said, what is it that you do? And, you know, I said, I teach, it was that pronunciation and that elocution, it was that thing. I teach people to speak English. And she said, can you draw me a picture? Draw a picture, people speaking English. This was a picture that I had used in my class quite extensively, and it was really, really helpful. And it's the settlement curve. So that's over a year. So every mark is a month. You know, they have 2 weeks of honeymoon, and they're here and they're safe and it's good. And then crash, they go falling down, down, down. I got my COVID haircut here. Look at this. I'm gonna take it out of my own face. Look at that. And they'd hit a rock bottom and slowly recover. But my students would ask each other, how long have you been here? And if they'd say this, you know, response was 6 months, they'd go, oh, it's going to get better, you know, because they could plot where they were on here, or 6 weeks. And they'd say, oh, it's going to get better, or 3 months. And students who had been 5 years, 10 years, 15 years in Canada, they would flock to them for advice and support. What do you do about this? What do you do about that? So this thing that they could plot themselves on was a good picture. So I went home and I created eventually this. If you have heard or seen anything about me, it's pictures, 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 pictures. And that was a turning point for me when that woman said, can you draw me a picture? Now everything's a picture. So this is the roadmap. I'm not going to use my pointer. Maybe you can see it anyways. Pronunciation's in here, and we saw all that. Doesn't matter that much. English is not a sound-based language. English has infinite, it's super, super generous. Students should know that the first day. We have infinite tolerance for sound substitutions and even grammar mistakes in conversation. In writing, not so much, but in conversation, they're not the same. But here's what they need to know to have a conversation. They need, the number one thing is word stress. So when that student's in my class on the first day, If they join later, the other students will turn to them and whip out an elastic and say, word stress is what you have to know to be intelligible in English. And now you're caught up. That's the one single most important thing. Sentence stress is word stress over sentences. There's some important words and some not. And linking, there it is. I am, you are, he is. This is how people are going to talk to you all of the time. And none of the words, this is what they really struggle with. None of the vocabulary that they've studied in school, they don't encounter it when they're speaking, when they're in conversation. And I'll do it with oranges. So it's 1 orange, 2 oranges, 3 oranges, 4 oranges, 5 oranges, 6 oranges, on and on and on. None of those words that they hear in the dictionary because of linking. It's something they need to know on the first day. Fluency is not for everybody, but everybody needs conversation. And there's the roadmap. There's the 6 chapters of English is stupid, students are not. There is no part of any English conversation before now or after now that doesn't fall inside of those 6 points. That's the horse thing. That's the patterns of English, how you train a horse. Those conditions must be met. But they like to plot themselves. This is the map, so they can say, oh, shoot, I'm here, I'm at linking, or I'm here, I'm getting expressions. So that was cool, but I was alone in the wilderness. The TED thing got me corporate clients, and I moved down to Brazil. I was hired in Brazil, and I was teaching banking and mining executives because corporate has unlimited money and no time. And even in Canada, they hire kids. The top students at universities often speak Chinese, and they can't understand them on the phone, and they're paying these kids $100,000 a year, and they can't understand them on the phone. So they can't get the value out of these students because of the way they speak English. So Oxford University Press hired me. That was a funny story, but it was HR. So I was in a different world. I was out of education. I was into corporate. I joined LinkedIn groups, and I was kicked out of every single one, every one. So they'd be having some conversation about upside down backwards E and how to teach that different from, you know, typeset A and upside down E attached together. And, you know, and I'd throw in, what if upside down backwards E is the problem? What if that's the problem? Then what do we do? You see, yeah, get out of our group. That's what we do. Oh my God, see? Oh, did I just do that? I'll get off my slide, see if it's gone. Oh, how do I undo that? We're stuck with it, guys, because I do not have the skills. Maybe it's here. Shoot. Sorry, my slides are ruined.
Judy, I'm going to see if I can make it go away.
Sure.
I wouldn't say.
I must have bumped my mouse.
Worst case scenario, you can stop sharing and then just reshare, and then it should leave.
You are so smart. I'm worrying about time, but okay, I'm going to do it again. One important thing I learned at ILCA was how forgiving people are. Nobody cares when you make a mess. You know, they just don't. Oh, look at you. See how smart she is? So we're on the 3rd part, finding my tribe. And I've plotted on the graph here, as my LinkedIn community grew. I wasn't welcoming groups, but my LinkedIn community grew and grew and grew. And I'm going to start from left to right. So Peggy Tharp was, she has her master's in TESOL. She'd been teaching for 30 years. There really isn't anything that she doesn't know. She's written several books on accent reduction for the most difficult language groups: Japanese, Arabic, Russian. And she caught up with me on LinkedIn, and she said it nicer than me. I heard you trash IPA. I've been using it for 30 years. What's your alternative? What's your suggestion? And I sent it to her. And by return mail, before 24 hours had passed, she answered and she said, this is better. So this is a woman, the height of her career and her field, invested 30 years in doing it one way, dropped it like that. I said, you are my hero. That is a teacher. That's amazing. Denise Ide has a reading program for English-speaking children can't read, 40%. Denise Ide made The Logic of English, and it's amazing. Me, I'm in Niagara Falls. Teresa Almeida Dessa. She showed up in LinkedIn. This woman has awards for Europe for best teacher for bringing technology into the classroom. And she's absolutely fluent. She's Portuguese, but she went to high school or something in America. And one day in class, she said, I'm not writing out English pronunciation in English. I'm writing it in Portuguese, not English. And then, of course, her students could pronounce it perfectly. And she made a dictionary, pronunciation made easy for Portuguese speakers. So these people kept popping out of the masses that were really head and shoulders. They made solutions for the biggest problems. Jennifer England was fluent in Spanish and English. She was Canadian and moved to Spain. She compared it to a cadaver. She said, if I open a Spanish man and an English-speaking man, the inside is the same. And I start with what's the same. You go, brilliant. Jason West has English Out There, and it's a totally experiential language learning program in London. Phenomenal English Out There. Rita Baker, probably the greatest mind in English teaching today. She did the global approach. We're going to do that in a minute. Judith Angeli from Hungary. She did teaching children English using only games. And to demonstrate it, she taught us Hungarian in an hour using only games. Like right off the charts, right out of the ballpark, these things. Andrew Weiler, I caught up with him later. He's in Australia, just freaking brilliant. So then, the coolest thing, a lot of cool things have happened to me, and I'm sure you can relate. Some days are diamond and some days are stone. But it was August 2012, and these outstanding English teachers were on LinkedIn, and we were all strangers to each other, and I sent them an email. And I said, you don't know me and you don't know each other, but I'm Judy, and just about whatever I just told you. I said, it is my dream that we would meet. And they all bought tickets, and we all met within 60 days. We were sitting in the same room together. So Rita Baker has a language school in Lidbury, England, and she said, I have a facility. I have dormitories. I can house everybody. And so we had to buy tickets, and we went today. So she was there virtually on a computer. And this group has continued to meet every Sunday afternoon for the last 8 years. These are my people. So Rita Baker, here's hers. Hers is the global approach. And very much like the color chart, she solved English grammar like a Rubik's Cube, she said. So there is no English grammar combination that can't be plotted on this one page. That includes questions, negatives, modals, irregular verbs, can all be plotted. Every single English grammar combination can be plotted on one page. So she takes 30 hours. She drives a Jaguar, you guys, and she gave one to her husband. So, you know, her course is 30 hours. Polyglots, their courses are 30 hours. People who speak a lot of languages don't teach them how we were taught to teach. I've never had a student for 30 hours, like ever. So if you're in class for more than 30 hours, your teacher doesn't know what they're doing. Heads up, I tell that to students all the time. So don't be the last people to understand this. So, but her client, Rita's clientele, again, are corporate executives and ambassadors, people that must speak English well immediately in 30 hours, in a week or two. So what we noticed about our group is we all had an epiphany, a moment of, oh my God, I know how this works. You can never go backwards. I could not have stayed and taught at the Peel board knowing what I knew about how to forward the students' goals. All pattern thinkers, every single one of us is a pattern thinker. We all develop unique approaches. I had English is Stupid at that time, and the rest have all subsequently written books about their stuff that are amazing. And we all felt alone. We all felt absolutely alone against the world, that our industry was actually crushing us, pushing us back instead of embracing us. It was a tough, lonely road. So Anish Daya, front and center there, amazing guy. He also has a fantastic experiential learning program. We met on LinkedIn, and he said, I'm in Toronto and you're in Niagara Falls, we should meet. So we met in 2018, and I said, surely we're not the only two out here who think the way. Anish speaks 7 languages fluently, not similar languages, like Japanese and Hindi and English and German, and the guy is a polyglot. So he teaches the way he learned. He doesn't teach whatever. So, I said, why don't we have a conference? Why don't we make a forum? Why don't we make a place for like-minded people to show up if they're interested? So we did the Disruptive Education Conference, and people came, and you can see from the picture, a lot of people in there were immigrants and really dissatisfied with the way that they were taught. And they're teaching English, they got their credentials, but they didn't like it, and they'd started their own companies. So we had a speaker on small business and marketing, ESL and technology, because no one can ignore that, accent reduction. Those were the speakers on Saturday. And on Sunday, we just had a think tank. It started at 10 in the morning. This is another moment I'll never forget. And Anish and I were there early, and we're sitting, and I got the coffee and the donuts all ready, and 10 o'clock came and went, and no one came. And 10:05, and we just looked at each other, and I said, that's our answer. We wanted to know if there was anybody else like us out there, and that's our answer. And we were just thinking, when should we go? And it was about 10 after 10, and somebody came in the door, and they came in like ants, one right after the other, till the place was full. And I thought, good, this is a conversation that's starting. And I just let them talk. They did not identify as disruptors, although we are disruptors. What's his name? Clayton Christensen, Disruptive Education. He's just recently passed, very sad. But how disruptors take down an industry. But none of them identified as disruptors because they felt the transparency brought to the English teaching industry by the internet. It's the way we do it now isn't sustainable. You can't have charts out there like the charts I showed you and have people continue to show up. In fact, pre-2008, there were 130 ESL teachers at the Board of Education. And post-2008, where immigrants just went and got jobs and didn't go to school, there are 30 teachers teaching ESL for the Board of Education now, where I worked. Epic fail in teaching English. So I said, well, what do you identify? And they said, coaches, we're coaches. And the rest of the session was dedicated to the difference. What's the difference? And how do we relate? How do I identify? And I thought, oh my God, I'm totally a coach. And it was Anish who introduced me to Gabriella and Carrie. Thank goodness for that. He's a master networker, just the generosity. And so there, I was a language coach for 20 years, didn't know it. And I'm jumping to the end here. My dad had OCD, which is, so what? But there was no word 50 years ago for someone who needed his stuff in its place and needed that kind of order in his space. It wasn't locked. We could use the bathroom. You know, it didn't seem weird to me, but now I know what it is. I'm a coach. I have this disorder. I have a disorder too. So I was not a duck. I was trained as a duck. There is nothing wrong with being a duck. Ducks are amazing. In fact, when I showed you that chart of the settlement curve and the honeymoon and the rock bottom point, if I ask an ESL student, ask anybody who's been there, what their rock bottom moment was, they will know that moment when it turned around. And usually it was an act of kindness, just an act of generosity. It wasn't knowledge or information that turned their world around. It was kindness, and it was always their teacher. Teachers are amazing. Don't get anything else from me but that. But that isn't me. So the accountability, the customization, the student driven, what do you need and what is your commitment to it? That's me. So enter the International Language Coaching Association, and they have accreditation for this thing that I was doing. I took the foundations course. It was what I wish I knew 20 years ago. It's what I learned the hard way. It was just my way. It was my road. It was neither good nor bad. It's all very, very good now. But yeah, I was just a swan. It's not bad. So that's it. That was me. I had turning points. I brought elements of my whole life to my job. I had a moment of epiphany from which I could never go back. I had moments that were very, very difficult and moments that were very, very great. I had a tremendous amount of success, and I'm proud of the work that I did. Here you go. You're getting a plug. Backpackersenglish.com. It's all consolidated in here. Backpackersenglish.com. There's 3 little booklets. The PDFs are $4 each. But in these booklets is how to discern what's the same about English and any other language. So you can focus on what they need, not blah, 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 what I know. Those will help you do that. And fluency, those are the 3 categories that we talked about in the roadmap: pronunciation, conversation, and fluency. That's my only plug. And a very, very, very big thank you to Gabrielle and Carrie. You're providing a fantastic service. You're extremely professional. You're extremely knowledgeable. And you guys, all of you, your little faces, whoever you are out there, you are my tribe. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Judy. Thank you for such a gorgeous presentation. Judy, do you have any time to stick around and take any questions or comments?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to open it up for that now. I just want to say again, yeah, go to backpackersenglish.com to get your variety of guides from Judy. Tools. And yeah, tools. And if you'd like to join ILCA or participate in one of our training courses, we're www.internationallanguagecoaching.com. Please come and join us. We're fostering a community of like-minded language coaches. And now I'm going to turn it over to everyone here. Quickly, I would like to take a selfie. If you're open to that, please turn on your camera, and we're all going to smile and wave and do a selfie, which is exciting when we've got meetings this big. I'll give everybody a second to turn on their cameras.
Cheers.
We had great comments this whole time in the chat box. All right, I see everybody adjusting, right? Getting ready. I'll tell you when. Okay, so let's all just like wave and say hi. Let me get my screenshot for everybody. And 1, 2, Ilka. Done. Okay, good. Thank you for that. I've got the selfie. Yeah, so from Lynn in the chat, Lynn says they don't feel like such a freak and a rebel now.
Yeah. You're a swan.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions or comments or things that they would like to throw out there? The floor is yours now for that. You have the capacity to just kind of unmute yourself and ask.
Oh,
Hi.
me too, Paul. We don't live that far away. It's going to happen.
I have a question.
Sure.
Do you feel like you've arrived now, or do you still have some work to do? I mean, are you sitting back on your laurels, or what?
I make my own decisions. I can turn down jobs. I get a ridiculous amount of money.
Really?
So I can afford to make choices that I couldn't make before. And I just wrote a program for teaching. It's called From Nana with Love, and it's for parents to teach their own child to read. And the problem is the same. It's the alphabet is so messed up, and phonics are ridiculous. You know, we're not doing that. So there's always something calling you. I'm working. I see David there, David Contreras from, yeah. We are working on English is Stupid for Spanish-speaking people. So we're making the definitive guide for a language group, and I hope other language groups follow that.
Cool. Thank you.
Call me if you want to do it for Hindi. Call me if you want to do it for Arabic. We will do it. But David and I are breaking new ground there, and super exciting project. So no laurels, no rest for the wicked.
Very good. Glad to hear it.
Who else? Anybody else?
I have a question. Hi, Judy. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
You talked about ILCA sort of certifying your approach. If one has a disruptive approach that is maybe going into an app, or like, I'm working on for a platform, what would be the proper way to have, because it's always a concern, not only for us as the creator of that platform, but when you present it, sometimes you'll have, especially investors or whatnot. Okay, who certifies this? Who says?
Okay, good question. And Carrie, you can help me with this.
Yes,
you guys are LL something certified. What are you certified? No, coaching. An international, actually the best coaching certification on the planet. These guys have it and have built their program to those specifications.
Right. So let me clarify. So one of our our co-founders, Gabriella, who's on the call too, she is an ICF accredited language coach, and the ICF is the International Coaching Federation. And to answer your question, is it David? Innovative LTC? Yeah. To answer your question, we at ILCA, we talk a lot about the certifications of our programs and the benefits and kind of challenges with running ICF accredited programs. We are currently in the process of that accreditation, but we always intend on privileging and having programs that are not accredited by an outside body like that, because with it comes a lot of constraints, and they're good constraints. It's good training. I'm in no way down about it, but I think that as an organization, we insist on having flexibility to offer certified courses and non-certified courses. Now, for an app, I'm not sure. We'd have to take that offline and talk more about like what it is that you're doing and what kind of certification you need. I think certification is one of those things some people feel very comfortable knowing that they are taking a certified course. Other people, it doesn't matter to them as much. I think the cultural kind of perceptions of that are important as well. And it really just does depend. But like I said, a lot of our courses, even with ICF accreditation, that's a much longer process for the, not just for us, like we're here training anyways, but for the people coming to us to train. And so we always will have parts of what we offer that's not certified, however, trademarked language coach through our organization. So that's another area you can go in as well. Does that clear up a little bit? Yeah? Okay. Gabriella, is there anything you want to add to it, or did I cover it?
Well, basically, I think all I can say is that we're giving everyone the benefits of the training that I've gone through, the training that Carrie has gone through without the high costs. Yep.
Exactly. That gets right down to it. Yeah.
I'm going to say your training is dovetailed to my industry and what I want to coach. It's
absolutely.
It's
absolutely
customized for me.
And with that dovetail and that customization, that's great. When you get into like outside accreditation, a large part of what's added and focused on are the kind of general coaching foundations as well. So, and at ILCA, when we train in both of those hats, but again, like Judy said, dovetail, it's perfect. We really niche down into language coaching and what that is and what are the specifics of that industry.
And we've also got attendees here. I'm just saying, so if anyone wants to say anything, then. But yeah, that kind of sums it up. So yeah, I don't know if there are any more questions. Yeah, I know because it's 1 in the morning. Fozia, yes.
Hello, Judy. Hi, I've been enjoying your posts so much on LinkedIn, and I enjoyed today's session a lot too. I just had a quick question. I'm a sessional teacher at UBC in Vancouver, and I'm just wondering with the coaching, if I were to add that on to my TESOL qualifications, I mean, how do other institutions sort of regard that? How do we market ourselves if we have that? And how does it make us just sort of more marketable in the industry?
Me? You're asking me?
Anybody?
You guys are coming with very rich questions.
I'll tell you what made a huge difference for me was my byline in my profile in LinkedIn. So when I, you put ESL teacher, English teacher, nothing. When I put pronunciation expert, ding, 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 I'm still reaping the rewards from changing that byline. So you might have to forge ahead on your own. This is who I am. This is what I do. And LinkedIn is a big enough platform. People who want you find you.
Yes, thank you.
Definitely. I've been found by clients through LinkedIn, Facebook. So social media is a very rich terrain for that kind of, if you're looking for individual clients, corporate clients, that's a mix, so you have to go after them and get them. But yes, and being a coach, I think that helps a lot because in the corporate world, they can identify, they know exactly what a coach does, but they've never thought of connecting language learning and coaching. And that's the huge big thing. And yeah, it's disruptive, but in a very good way. So that's
something that also worked really well was a consultant. I get paid as a consultant. So a business consultant, and they're happy to pay you. I give them a tier. Here's the economy and the standard and the deluxe package. They always pick the deluxe package because it's in their budget. But they hire me as I can say coach now, but honestly, till I met these guys, I didn't know that that's what I was. But a consultant, you have to deliver, you can't take 30 hours to do it. You've got to do it in 6 to 10 sessions, but they'll pay anything, if you will.
It's also about, I think, understanding as a learner how you learn and what you need to do differently. So not going on the same tracks over and over again because you're not getting the results, right? And that's where the coaching comes in. So, okay, so how can you do it differently?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would also say, Fozia, to add to that, you mentioned TEFL, TESOL certifications, and how that lands in working with organizations, right? And how do we integrate this identity as a language coach? It's our firm, belief and passion at ILCA that the language coach, integrating that into your identity as a professional is something that completely enriches what you have to offer an organization. But it's also important, I think, to be mindful if interviewing, if talking to organizations about what you do, that language coaching is a new thing. We always say it's practitioner led, right? All of us that are here today, everybody's here because they're identifying as it, they're doing it. None of us are here because we received this training when we went into ESL or language teacher training.
I'm going to update my LinkedIn profile and put Ilka on it. Just the brand Ilka, you know, if that,
I love
because
that.
it just makes such a difference, and it gives credibility, I believe.
Okay, honorable mention. Yeah.
Yeah.
How would we take this training if we're not in Toronto?
It's online.
Yeah, all of our training's online.
Yeah. Even before COVID, so we're online because we've got attendees from. How was the last one, Carrie? From Japan to Chile, basically.
Yes,
that was
exactly.
so we can't do that face to face.
I'm dropping the link in the chat for anybody that wants it to the summer intensive course.
Right.
That'll take you right there, and then feel free to explore the website and look around. We've got other resources, some downloadable things on there.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, yeah. I'm just wondering if there are any more questions to Judy. I mean, it was just so rich. I just was taking down notes about this. What was it? Yeah, around the middle you said this. The learners did not want to learn about English, but speak the language. And I think that's just so resonating with a lot of us. So where you're learning about the system and the charts and you've got all those pages and pages and pages of stuff. It's information about how the language works, but you're not actually doing it, even though that you're trying, but it's not working. And I think that's where there's a lot of disrupting going on nowadays, when the learners are also realizing that this is not okay and they're looking for alternatives. And that's how they're going to find Judy, that's how they're going to find a language coach, that's how they're going to find instructors who are not doing the more traditional kind of teaching. Am I right about that? I'm seeing some
100%.
Yeah, so that resonated with me very much. This learning about a language is not the same as speaking the language. I think that kind of says it all. Well, for me anyway. Any other questions? I know we don't like going over time, but we usually do. Anything that resonated with you? It doesn't have to be a question, just something to share.
Yeah, I wanted to say that Judy always has these nuggets of information that are quite interesting. And when you said that fluency is not for everyone, but everybody wants to have a conversation, I think that's key, because we have so many students that are so concerned about sounding like a native, and they focus on that so much, and realize that most native English speakers don't really care if you don't speak perfectly. So just to get the conversation across, or the point across. And also what Judy was saying, that most transactional conversation in the world today is not based on, is not made by two people who are native speakers anyway. So I think that's very important. Fluency is not, for everyone. I think that's
if you give them conversation, the fluency is going to happen. You don't have to do a single thing.
If it's relevant and meaningful, yes. And that's also, are you interested in what the other person wants to say, or are you just checking the grammar?
And what is fluency, really? I mean, how can we define fluency? Because you have a lot of non-native speakers who are fluent, but exactly what is it? Can you define it in a, can you put a number on it?
Yes.
Okay.
Fluency is abstract. It's jokes and expressions, and innuendo, and culture and body language. And the fluency guide is called You Don't Say. It isn't about talking at all. It's that other level. So English is abstract, and that's where the fluency is.
There's so much to this that
words that you're saying to what you mean.
Yeah, so much to this that it's like water. Like when it rains, water is going to flow, to a drain, and whether it does it slow or fast, or goes around or under objects or anything, any obstacle, it's going to get there, you know, regardless. I mean, yeah, sometimes it'll settle, but water is going to get where it needs to go eventually. And I even say that that's probably where the word fluency comes from. So whether it's slow or fast, it's going to get where it needs to go. Right?
Very cool.
Wow. Wow. It's also this, you know, question of perfection.
Oh,
And, isn't it? I was doing an action plan with a client, and the word perfection or perfect, whatever, I don't know. I think it was being more fluent, of course, and being perfect in writing CVs, whatever. And I said, can you define what perfect means? You know, in a world there are no mistakes. And we had this conversation about what mistakes mean. And so she crossed out perfect. I said, yeah, there you are. There's your action plan. You don't need to be perfect. That's not what your goal should be.
yeah.
So just, you know, turning everything upside down. It's not about being perfect. It's about, so can you communicate? Can you get your meaning through, as you said? And yeah, exactly. So yeah, and you get, so the reactions are really like, yeah, you get those epiphanies or whatever for the learners, like, wow, oh, I never thought that I don't need to be perfect. And it's just so logical, isn't it? Okay.
There's a good question there came up about a native speaker. That is a fantastic question, and my bad. You know, I meant to say native English speaker. That's what I meant, and I didn't. And it was even in my mind to say it, and I kept a lot of things in my mind, but I didn't say that, and I'm going to apologize. That native English speaker is what I meant to say. Sorry. You're all going to forgive me.
There's this conversation about native speakerism anyway, you know, the bias
Exactly.
native language teachers get. So if they get hired or not, oh, you're not a native, so that means you're not what? You're not what? So yeah, so a lot of interesting ways that we could be moving the conversation, but we are going to be closing this conversation slowly. One reason my kids are starting to bang on the door, so. So thank you very much everyone for attending, and we'll have our next one lined up in June and July and August and all the year through. So we've got one every month. Visit our website, lots of free goodies there, and sign up to anything that you see. And thank you, Judy, very, very much for your time, for preparing, for talking about these things. It was a real eye-opener, and yeah, I can see everyone clapping and
My pleasure.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Judy. We're so lucky to have you as one of our founding board members. So
I'm lucky. We're done.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.